What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to a live Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. AEW Revolution 2021 just literally ended. So we are going to talk about what went down there, give you a recap of all the results, review everything of the positives, the negatives, and everything in between. We want you to do the same thing, whether you're listening live or you're listening, on demand afterward. So drop a comment in the live chat if you're there. If you are not there right now, drop a comment in the comment section below or wherever you're listening to this, or you send us a tweet at SmarkOutMoment, send us a thing on Facebook, put something on the page on smarkoutmoment.com. We want to know your opinions. We're going to be giving ours. It's only fair. So who are we? Well, I am your host as always, Tony Mango, and as always, I've got with me Kellen Wiggins. What you gonna say that this show started and ended with a bang, or would you say something else?
It certainly didn't end with one.
Oh man, we got a lot to talk about. We got some stuff that's really, really good. We got some stuff that I'm not happy about.
I think, at least from my perspective, I'm gonna say 90% positive stuff about this show. And then there's this one 10% of it, and there's a very big proportion of that 10% which almost ruined the entire thing. So, I hate to bury the lead and stuff like that, but that ending is one of the worst endings to a pay-per-view in wrestling history. And I don't think I'm being over dramatic when I'm saying that.
And I'll bury one of the leads for me. That's not my the thing that I'm going to complain about the most.
Oh, I know. You said what you were going to complain about a post before this thing even broadcast. Yep. So I'm well aware about that. But I'm going to staunchly defend that thing because you can't blame AEW for capitalizing on WWE being stupid.
Oh, that's not AEW's fault. This isn't a complaint of the AEW pay-per-view that I've got we'll talk about. It's a complaint of me as a fan and the things I'm gonna have to deal with. Fine. But even on the card itself, I do think that there are some things that I didn't really like a whole lot, and I know that gets under people's skin sometimes. Sometimes people are like, you disagree with my opinion and I'm worse than Hitler or something, and it's like, oh, come on, like, relax. So if you guys disagree with us, it's fine. Tell us what you thought. Drop a comment. Keep the discussion going.
So we do this live. Want to get people to just immediately disagree with us, and then we can immediately tell them why they're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some stuff that you like that I didn't like, vice versa, that kind of thing. What's up, Guest 5? What's up, Marco, in the chat? Guest 5 says, hello, ladies. Marco says the visual was definitely a letdown, but the match was insane, and being in a good mood all day helped. It always does help. If you're having a bad day, it's harder to get out of that when you're watching something. If you're having a good day, sometimes it gets ruined. Sometimes it just gets even better. It's a little cherry on top. For my context, I've been having a kind of halfway decent day and a kind of shitty day. I'm like 50-50. So I had a little bit of some positives and negatives here. And just to do some housekeeping ahead of time. If you are in the chat and you're chatting it up and everything, then that's super awesome. And I said before, if you're not able to listen to this live, you're listening to it afterward, then make sure that you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't done that already. Ring that little notification bell as well. That way you'll be aware of when we do go live for these things. So next time around, when we are going live, maybe you won't be able to miss it. Or, you'll at least have the heads up when it comes to that. And if you feel so inclined, hit that applause button. That's great. Hit the join button if you want to be a part of that. But in particular, I want to talk about the Patreon. We'll get to that in a little bit, but that's the thing. we'll run that down. I don't want to make this too plug heavy at the beginning of it. I want to get into the actual card and talk about how much easier it is to watch the pre-show for AEW shows than WWE shows, because it's half an hour of all the setup and then a match. And, I didn't dislike the match. For anybody who's kind of wanting the more recap side of things, it was supposed to be Riyo and Thunder Rosa against Dr. Britt Baker and Reba, but they had already set up this idea that Reba's not going to be in the match, that she's going to be replaced by question mark. And that was one of the things going into this. I was really interested in seeing who they'd replace her with. Ended up being Maki Ito.
Yeah, it was.
Didn't see that one coming, but I liked it.
Oh, so good.
She, you were saying ahead of time before this tournament started that you liked her. I had never heard of her, naturally, because I watched WWE and AEW. And she got me to pop a couple times. I thought it was funny when she did the whole bit of crying like a little kid and stomping on, I think it was Thunder Rosa's foot.
Mm.
In particular, I liked the headbutt.
Well, that's her main gimmick, is the fact that she's very hard-headed. So, in terms of like the actual way that her character is presented, she's not a quote-unquote top-level wrestler.
Yeah. She's
essentially has a very strong character, but is a jobber in reality. I mean, she's getting more exposure in Tokyo Joshi Pro. She's winning more matches. She's getting like further in tournaments and stuff like that. But she's still seen as an underdog in most circumstances. But what she does have is a lot of durability and a really hard head, and that's essentially what she uses in all her matches.
Yeah, I like that. I like the match overall. It's a pre-show match. It's not something that's going to be the biggest selling point of the pay-per-view, but it did its job. It was filler, whet the appetite of everybody. Thumbs up. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good match. I think that they got plenty of time to work with. They got a lot of near fall situations towards the end of it, like the long closing stretch. I thought Baker looked excellent. Thunder Rosa looked great as well. Riho and Maki Ito were kind of like the lesser of the two in terms of in-ring stuff, but the fact that Maki was there was already means that people were getting over with this match. It's going to be interesting that they're positioning her as a heel, because she's just really popular because of who she is. But to be fair, her character leans into the heel thing too much to really do the opposite. So yeah, I appreciated this. I appreciated this kickoff match. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Then we rolled into the actual beginning of the whole thing. Well, for anybody who wants to know, obviously I should do the recap side of things too. Britt Baker and Maki Ito won, and they won in due large part to Reba hitting Thunder Rosa with a crutch. So I like that a little bit too, because that's what she's there for.
Yeah.
And we get into the first match of the night, and I think probably the best match of the night, the AEW World Tag Team Championship match. I do like some other ones well enough that kind of contends with it, but I think I'd probably go with that one as being my favorite.
It was definitely a very good match. I certainly wouldn't put it as my favorite. I thought it was, by the Young Bucks standards, I thought it was good. Young Bucks can do better. Have had better matches in AEW than this one. Both Jericho and MJF, I think, have had better matches than this one as well. It was just a nice, well put together tag team match. Young Bucks showed a bit more fire because of the personal animosity that had been developed between them. And then the heels took over for a while, and then there was a big babyface comeback, and that was basically it, really. I don't think that it reached any of the heights of any of the FTR match or the match with Paige and Omega from last Revolution.
Yeah.
So yeah,
not as good as that, but you know,
it was good. I'd probably put at least 2, maybe even 3 matches ahead of it in the pecking order.
2 or 3, really?
Yep.
I wouldn't go that far.
And yeah, well, you just said there's probably your favorite one, so I doubt you would put 2 or 3 ahead. But,
there's maybe 3 matches that I had similar to the same level of enjoyment, but I don't think that any more than maybe one of them would really be like possibly above it. I'll say the one thing, like the ladder match, to me, I enjoyed it quite a bit, and we'll get into that when we get into it, but to me, I wouldn't put that above it, for instance.
I just thought that it was as close as you're ever going to get to a paint by numbers Young Bucks match that you're going to see on pay-per-view.
Yeah,
I just feel like they did what they would do. Jericho and MJF did what they would do, and it wasn't particularly like eye-catching, or like basically the match went pretty much as I expected it to go. And that's not a knock on it. It just means that it didn't excel like I thought some other matches did excel.
I did think we would get new champions. So a lot of the near falls got me, whether it was, a pro Young Bucks near fall or a pro Inner Circle one. So whenever a match has near falls that make me convinced, oh, okay, well, that's the end. Oh, it isn't. That's usually a major positive for me. Another one of them being the slobber knocker joke.
Yeah, because he was just slobbering all over the place when he was being kicked in the face multiple times.
Yeah, and then JR is just like, it's a slobber knocker. It's like, you know what? That's good. 10 points.
And Jericho gets pinned. And should we talk about the thing that happens later in the night rather than just wait until it actually just comes up, the interview with Jericho and MJF?
Yeah, where do you think that this is going? Because they said that they're going to have a war council. Is that what they had referred to it as?
Yeah, so Jericho said that it's going to be a war council and some things are going to change. And then he basically handed the mic over to MJF and said, yeah, I think there's one particular thing that needs to change in the inner circle. And so they are teasing, very obviously, the fact that they're going to kick Jericho out of the inner circle.
Yeah, it seems like that would be the direction that, at least that I'm reading into it. They might be like, you thought that was going to be the case and, we fooled you kind of a thing. But
yeah, they could stretch it out. But I think the way that the match was put together in terms of Jericho being the one that took the fall, Jericho's had things where he's lost to Orange Cassidy in a recent feud and stuff like that. So maybe it's just the idea that this is the time that MJF thinks I can get everyone on side, push him out, take over. Then Jericho's on the outside. I feel like I thought that it was going to be Jericho and MJF at All Out, but I could definitely see it, them accelerating it and doing it at Double or Nothing instead.
Yeah, if they have the split like that, they got to do it at Double or Nothing. They can't do the split and then wait. How many more months? When's All Out? All Out's August or September. Yeah, that's way too many months.
Yeah, unless Jericho's going away for a while, I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, if it ends up being a scenario where they write him off TV, he ends up doing some kind of a tour, because he does that every once in a while, and then they probably won't do any kind of cruise again, just because that's probably not going to be anywhere close to something that people want to do. But I didn't expect that to be the case. I figured that they would win the titles and we would drag this out a little bit longer. I'm not necessarily opposed to quote unquote rushing it, as long as I feel like they end up having something good enough for the whole rest of the year. And I will give AEW credit for this, despite the fact that they bring people in, they rush them to the top, and then they seem to drop them off. Sometimes it seems like they've got a plan that's a year or something in the making, a lot more than WWE does in a lot of ways. So I feel more comfortable with AEW in those scenarios than in WWE for even like a 2-week period sometimes. So I'm curious, and I'm assuming now the Good Brothers are probably the number one contenders to eventually win those tag team titles, but even though they're not part of the roster, I can't imagine anybody else really doing it. Maybe Private Party, but that's kind of meh. What's your gut reaction of who beats the Young Bucks?
It's a little bit up in the air at the moment. I don't think that the Young Bucks and Good Brothers match needs to be for the tag team titles. So my gut is pointing me towards them dropping it at Double or Nothing to someone who isn't the Good Brothers. I just don't know who that is just yet.
Yeah, I thought that could be that they would drop the titles here, then that's why they could do that match, because not the case.
If they decide to do the thing of Jericho being kicked out of the Inner Circle, they could do a renewed push for Santana and Ortiz as like the tag team of the Inner Circle. Build that back up, and then they actually win the titles there. There's nothing to say that they could not just lose it to. The storyline they're doing at the moment on Dark and stuff like that is SCU holding or basically their next time they lose a singles tag team match, as it were, together, like a straight up 2-on-2 match, then they're gonna disband as a team. So they could do the thing where they win the championships, go on one final run, and then when they lose the titles, they split up as a team as well.
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
No.
They could also do MJF and Wardlow win the tag titles. He could be like, you know what? Like, the reason I didn't win that match is because of Jericho, but if I had a shot with Wardlow, it'd be a different story. Maybe that happens.
Well, that's the beauty of having such a rich and diverse tag team division. It literally could be anything, and it wouldn't be out of the question.
Well, I wouldn't say that. If suddenly TH2 won, I'd be like, what? Really? But we had a lot of good tag teams that we got shown off on this card. We'll get into that in a moment.
We got a nice super chat.
We have a super chat going on? I have that. Yeah, look at
From Dane.
my buddy Dane. Christian Cage, the Instant Classic, is the most underrated and underappreciated wrestler ever. Christian Cage better than Edge. I will maintain Edge still better than Christian, but I am a big fan of Christian. I do like him quite a bit.
But if you pay us $20, then Christian Cage is better than Edge all day. You know?
I'm never gonna hear the end of this at my Dane.
I'm easy to buy.
Dane's gonna cut a promo at my wedding, and he's gonna be like, "So, like, you know, for the happy couple, I just want to say Christian Cage is better, and give Rusev the bell." Thank you, Dane. Continuing on here, the tag team situation. We know at least the next contenders are going to be the winners of that Casino Tag Team Royale. Really quickly, though, we've talked about this before here and there. Why was it called the Casino Tag Team Royale? At least with the other ones, they had the casino gimmick. They didn't even have it this time, so it really didn't need to be called the Casino anything. I think it should have been called like the Tag Team Rush Royale or something like that. That just gets under my skin.
I think it's just the fact that it's always down to chance.
So the lotto something, or I don't know. The Casino Royale thing. As much as I'm a huge Bond fan, which, by the way, if you're a huge Bond fan, check out the A Review to a Kill series that we're doing over on fanboysanonymous.com. We have done all the way up through, the ones that have been posted, we're doing them a little bit in advance. So the most recent one that I think has been uploaded is on Her Majesty's Secret Service. And tomorrow or so, we're going to probably record The Spy Who Loved Me. So we're pumping them out there. They're going to be coming out each and every week on Friday mornings. And, if you're a fan of that, subscribe to the channel, Fanboys Anonymous, and check out the website, fanboysanonymous.com. Hit up the Facebook and Twitter, follow those things, and check out the Patreon for that to do more on that side of things, too. But the Casino Tag Team Battle Royale was won by Death Triangle. I don't know why I said that weird. Why did I say it like that? Death Triangle. They won with Ray Phoenix as the last survivor. He took out Jungle Boy to ultimately win the match. Two of the teams that they had advertised ahead of time were not actually in the match. Top Flight and Chaos Project. I'm kind of curious why. Because I saw Serpentico ringside.
I guess they decided that they wanted to go with, was it 15 teams? Is that what they ended up with? Because it was like that. They talked about the fact that there was like 30 people in the match. So maybe they wanted to just cut it off a round number.
I mean, if they would have added 2 more people, it would have been another whole 3 minutes added to the match at the very least. And you know what?
AEW show's gone long enough. So.
It's Chaos Project and Top Flight. No, neither of them were going to win anyway.
No, exactly.
So I'm not opposed to that. If that really upsets you, let me know. But I thought that this was great. I love battle royales. I like when people are just running around doing some stuff. You got a wide variety of people. You got some moments that are like, oh, okay, that guy got eliminated. I didn't think that would happen right then. And I just enjoyed it. It's pretty simple, pretty standard. Nothing standing out to me a whole lot. I just liked it. We do have a couple moments here and there, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was parts in the middle where it got really sloppy. Like there were just too many bodies in the ring, and they were all trying to. It's the issue with the AEW people is that they always like to do spots in any match, especially even in a battle royal, which for the most part can be good because as long as people in the right position. But I just think there was just too many bodies all over the place, and that made it a bit not so much of a chore to watch, but a bit of an eyesore. It was fun chaos, but it was still just all over the place. But I appreciate the fact that with every one of these battle royals or Royal Rumbles or equivalent things that they do, they always try and tell interwoven stories within that are going to lead on to other things besides just the eventual winners. So I think the main story coming out of this outside of the winners thing was QT Marshall turning his back on Dustin Rhodes. Yeah,
QT Marshall eliminates the Gun Club. Dustin Rhodes is like, what are you doing? They're a part of the Nightmare family. And QT eliminates himself and spits at Dustin. So am I missing something? Was there like some kind of tension before this, or does this come out of blue?
So the tension seemed to kind of start with there was that Lee Johnson Cody Rhodes match.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they had that tag team match on where they won, and Lee Johnson thanked every single person in the Nightmare family except for QT Marshall. very specifically with that, and so QT was pissed about that. And I think there probably has been some stuff on Dark. I can't say I watch it as comprehensively as maybe I could or should or anything, or at least to understand that side of it. But there has been some tension growing between the two of them about the fact that QT feels disrespected. So QT turning on him here is just like the culmination of that. Maybe they'll do a few storylines going forward where it's like, okay, so we'll bring him back. He was just a bit of a hot-headed moment, and then he'll do a more decisive turn in a tag team match down the road.
Yeah, I don't remember anything happening on Dark anytime recently, at the very least, with QT Marshall, because the last real story I can pinpoint that he was a part of was the whole thing with the bunny, and that just went nowhere. So maybe I'm missing something. I forgot about the Lee Johnson thing. So I'm interested. Yeah, let's see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I assume we'll have some sort of like him QT Marshall taking on like Austin Gunn in a match soon.
Yeah, he'll probably beat Colton Gunn, Austin Gunn, fight Dustin Rhodes in some kind of a trainer versus trainer kind of thing or something. Here's another note that I had though on here. What the hell was I could talk. Evil Uno doing here with the Marco Stunt does a Hurricane Rana, and he just like waits a second, runs all the way across the apron and into the ring post.
Yeah, I think that the Hurricane Rana was meant to go better than it did, and I think Marco Stunt let go a bit too soon, and so instead of going in that direction, he should have just fallen off. Whereas he decided, well, the spot is that I run into the ring post and hit it and go off. It's just, it didn't look good. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, there was I loved Bear Country in this match.
Yeah, they looked pretty strong.
They were lifting people all over the place. Like the spot where he had, I can't remember who it was, he had on like in a powerbomb position, but then he caught Evil Uno in his hands as well. Just was walking around with them both in, like lifting them up at the same time. It was great.
Might have been Jungle Boy. Yeah, I think it was a smaller one, but I don't remember for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely was. I think it was maybe one of Pillman or Garrison, maybe.
I was surprised that just one of those things that has gone over my head. Griff Garrison's tall, man. Like, he was standing next to Luchasaurus, and they're like, "Oh, one of the big guys just got eliminated." And I'm like, you know what? Really? Yeah, Griff Garrison's a pretty deceptively tall guy.
He's
lost on me at first.
He's one for the future, definitely.
Yeah,
but I was quite interested about the fact that basically whenever any tag team came in, they would usually be given like a spot to shine for a little while and do some cool stuff, and then the Varsity Club comes out, Varsity Blonde, should I say, comes out, and then their big spot is that they do hit a couple of people and then set up to suplex Cesar Bononi, and Cesar Bononi suplexes them back, and then that was the end of their shine. Just that's what you get for still being signed for MLW, I guess.
Yeah, and another standout thing for me in this was how much sunburnt the Butcher, the Blade, and Bear Country were.
Yeah, that was.
They were like somebody just sprayed them with I don't know, like some kind of hot pink.
I mean, they are around hot meats all day, so.
So the Casino Royale, I like that quite a bit.
Oh, I'd say at the very least, even though it was chaotic about the thing, the final sequence with the final few people was just excellent. That were really cool, and they're doing this thing where eventually Jungle Boy's got to win one of these matches.
Yeah.
Because he always comes down to the final two and he's always the last one eliminated. Eventually he's going to win one. It has to be for something big.
Yeah, at least they're consistent with that too, of being like, Jungle Boy is the future. He almost got it this time. Instead of being like how sometimes WWE does it, where they're like, this guy's the future. Let's job him out for a 10-second match on Raw or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to see a one-on-one match between him and Phoenix down the line, because that was a really good taster of it.
Yeah, can't go wrong with something like that.
No, that's one of the ones where I'm okay with Tony Khan saying, I'm just putting this match on just because I feel like it's good.
Yeah, sometimes that's not bad. I harp on that sometimes where I'm just like, oh my God, there's no story to this or whatever. But that's when there's a feud going on more than anything, and it ends up being like, well, the feud is, wouldn't it be interesting if these guys fought? And it's like, well, for a one-time match, cool. If you continue to do that for, you're building it up to it for like a month or something, then that's where it gets under my skin. It's going to be the phrase of this episode, I think. This is maybe the second or third time I've said that. So, speaking of something that gets under my skin, there you go. I'll say that like that way. The AEW Women's World Championship match, I thought was boring. I thought Riyo Mizunami had weak chops. She looked like she was patting Hikaru Shida. I thought it was slow. I didn't think that a lot of their moves were pulled off well. It seemed like they were slowing down. Like one of them was checking to see if the other one was injured. I didn't like this.
I thought this was an excellent match that just went on too long.
I mean, maybe if it would have been cut short, it wouldn't have felt as bad to me. But and I will say, me thinking that it's bad does not mean that this is, Jenna Maraska and TNA bad or something. It just, I was just like, wow, it's consistent with the women's division in AEW, where I just don't feel this great excitement and everybody goes nuts over these things. And I'm like, I'm not seeing it. Every once in a while, there's a good thing that really gives me something positive. And there's people too. Like they have some really talented people. Even like Tainara Konshi, she is so much better in AEW than she was in WWE. And there are some pretty talented people that they've brought in, and some pretty talented people on the roster. Big Swole, I like. But this, I just felt like, crap, we went through this tournament because you didn't have anybody. And then you're kind of hinging on the idea that, well, at least the match is going to be really good. Yet the match was worse than some of the other ones that I've seen. I didn't like this.
Yeah, well, I can only disagree with that assessment. It's just, I think that the chops that Riyo and Mizunami did is akin to Satoshi Kojima from New Japan, who does the same sort of thing, where hits one hard chop and then just hits a number of them into the corner. It's usually better when you have a big crowd chanting along with that thing. Even though they had a crowd, they're not familiar with her style, so that hopefully will come over time, depending on how long that she's in the country for. I think that they put together some good sequences, some good striking exchanges. Like the story they were telling throughout the match was very clear. It was just a case of they've fought too many draws before and stuff like that, but no one's been a decisive winner over the other one. Both of them felt that they were the better person, so they were taking it easy on a couple of occasions. And essentially they would throw each other with some big suplexes or big strikes. The other person would get back up immediately, do the thing. That's very like New Japan style. So I'm totally not against them doing that side of things. There are only two things I didn't really like about this match. One was the point where you did the certain things where Riyo Mizunami was doing like a mime rope thing, and bits where Hikaru Shida was smiling too often and stuff like that. I just feel like it doesn't feel like it has the level of urgency it needs for a championship match. Like, it feels like these two are more interested in like sparring and entertaining each other and doing their own thing rather than. I find with that as a story aspect, but then you need to start pinning people and start trying to actually retain or win the championship. And the other thing was that I thought the end sequence went on too long. There were too many bits where Shida should have just had the match. Like, she could have done that spinning kick thing, which I did really like as the finish, but I think she should have done that like 2 or 3 pinfalls earlier, rather than keep doing some running kicks that Mizunami kept kicking out of and stuff like that. And just, it suffered from the typical AEW syndrome of going on about like 3 to 5 minutes longer than it should have done.
Well, you brought up a point about the whole like the mime thing, because one of my criticisms of this was Shida, they play fast and loose with this heel and face thing. And sometimes it works. And I think, honestly, more times than not, it doesn't work. Like, I hated that whole the Young Bucks are going around super kicking everybody but their baby faces kind of thing. I hated that. And you do need a certain level of heel and baby face in most matches. Not every match. Baby face does work well sometimes. Heel can be kind of fun. But with this one, I felt like, in theory, Riyo Mizunami should be kind of the heel because she's the outsider. She's not part of the company. And we've already watched Shida. If you've been watching from the beginning of it, you are familiar with Shida. You're supposed to like Shida in a lot of ways. She's been, attacking heels to try to save baby faces and different things. But then in this one, we've got Riyo Mizunami is playing more to the crowd. And then Shida is doing things like the stomp to the face, kind of just being like a crude taunt. But then at other parts, it's like, no, she's the baby face. And I'm like, well, you want to have your cake and eat it too, but you're not doing the kind of shades of gray thing. You're doing more, she's healing this part, and she's healing this part. I didn't think that was done well.
See, I didn't see it as in any way meant to be a heel or face dynamic in any regard. It's a champion doesn't against a winner of a tournament. Doesn't really matter what dynamics they are, and it's just I think they told through the story in the video packages and through commentary that these two are old rivals / old friends, and they've done stuff. They've wrestled many times before, and so it's just a case of those two doing what they do. They know each other well. They know what gets under each other's skin.
That's the phrase of the podcast.
Oh yeah, exactly. But it's just but yeah, but I'm using it in a good, like, if I use it once, it's fine. But yeah, I think it was just two people wanting to prove that they were the dominant one over it, and that meant that every now and again they were just trying to rub it into the other person by being a little bit nastier or a bit more aggressive towards it. But I think by the end of it, you were meant to take the perspective that neither of them were heels.
Yeah, I mean, they all ended up at the end with kind of an agreement, and this is another one of my criticisms, though. They did the whole thing with Nyla Rose coming out and attacking, and I'm like, damn it, I don't want to see the Nyla Rose thing again. I'm tired of watching as many hours of pro wrestling as I watch per week, and so much of it being reruns, because I'm just not into watching the same thing a million times. And I mean, I can love certain things and still want to consume it a lot. Like I mentioned before, like we're doing these James Bond film recaps. I've seen every Bond film multiple times. Some of them, no lie, I've probably seen GoldenEye 50 times. I can probably quote the entire movie word by word and maybe get like one line wrong or something. But that doesn't mean I want to watch it every single day. And something like the Nyla Rose and Hikaru Shida feud, they've had two standout matches. And if I remember correctly, I liked one of them and I thought the other one was overrated. And I just don't like the idea that we just keep going back to that. It really feels like they have nothing better to do. And we've criticized them before that the women's division needs more solid hands, because you're using Thunder Rosa and she's not a part of the company, and she's arguably the best person on the roster who's not on the roster. So I'm like, we're doing the Nyla Rose thing again. Damn it. You know? I mean, Baker came out, Maki Ito came out, but still, I'm like, that's what you want to set up? Is that? I'm not into it.
I mean, I would rather them go with someone else other than Nyla Rose, but I really don't get annoyed at this extent, because it's like they've had two matches. It's like it's not like every single week on Raw and stuff like that we were constantly seeing Apollo Crews versus Bobby Lashley or the MVP or some combination of the Hurt Business during that entire time on Raw, or seeing Andrade and Angel Garza against the Street Profits for months on end, or Rey Mysterio versus Seth Rollins in some sort of configuration. It's like
not that bad, I'll give you that.
Yeah, and I'd say I would like them to go with a different option. I don't think they are building towards Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Shida for the title again, or if they do, it's just going to be on an episode of Dynamite and will be swiftly forgotten about. I think the story is Britt Baker, obviously. That seems to be the route they're going through, because that's why she turned up at the end of it. So yeah, I'm assuming that's the path they're going to go down. I think that'll be the match of Double or Nothing.
The Baker one?
Yep.
I really hope so, because if it's just Nyla Rose, the next few weeks you're going to be hearing a lot of things on the hot tags, me being like, and it's just this again, because it magnifies it so much more when you're watching stuff and you're talking about it, and then you're writing stuff about it, and you're whatever. Then you live 15 times through the same thing, and then, you know, there's a lot of instances, particularly in WWE, where I'm like, I'd enjoy this so much more if I didn't watch it. And then it goes, well, you shouldn't have to think that, you know, like that this would be better off if you didn't watch it. Because theoretically, you should watch every single bit of everything WWE and AEW does. You should be fine with watching all of the YouTube content, all of the recap content, and not feel like you're getting beaten over the head with it. I'm hoping that they go in the Baker direction. We'll see.
I will also remind anyone listening that Tony was annoyed for AEW's first ever show because they decided to do Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega. And it's just like, oh, we've seen that match already. And it was just like in a completely different promotion about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, but I still think that, if you, all things considered, if you have the option of doing something fresh, that's typically the better answer. I'd rather go for, and it's weird because I'm not the type of person. I'm very much like, I'll stick with the things that I know. But when it comes to something like this, I'm always like, give me something different,
Yeah, so they should never have done the second Terminator movie. They should have just ended it at the one and gone a completely different character.
I'll tell you what, they never should have done the 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, whatever.
Well, that's an obvious thing.
So they've done Shida 1, Shida Nyla Rose 1, Shida Nyla Rose 2. There you go. Don't do 3 and 4. Don't do Rise of the Nyla Roses, or whatever you want to call it. Man, I could go on a whole big tangent about Rise of the Machines. We're not going to do that. So Shida retains, and then they move into another match that I honestly felt didn't need to be a part of this. It was backstage. They transition over to an attack. Miro and Kip Sabian, a jump, Orange Cassidy, and Chuck Taylor. It was an interesting way to start. I'll give them that. But ultimately, the match just felt like it was filler. And since this ended around midnight, I would have rather them just cut this.
Potentially, I thought that the match itself was a good story match. It wasn't exactly like a good match, but it made Miro look like the killer that we all want him to be. He was very destructive throughout it, and I think that it basically was a nice setup to the fact that things are obviously moving in a direction, because towards the end, Miro knocked Penelope Ford off the apron by pushing, I think it was either Cassidy or Taylor into her, and she goes flying. Kip's checking on her. Miro seems to have a bit of an awkward stare down with him after winning the match by forcing Taylor to tap out, and that's kind of puts a little bow on that side of the story, because that was the whole thing, is that Taylor refused to follow him or be his friend, and so he decided to punish him for it and made him tap out, as you'd expect. It sets up probably there's going to be a one match between Miro and Orange Cassidy in the future, and I'm kind of looking forward to that because I think their exchanges were pretty good.
Yeah, they were easily the best part of this match.
Yeah, so I'm not saying necessarily that this match could have been put on a Dynamite and it would have been fine. I don't think it's terrible that it was on this show instead. It makes it feel a little bit more important by putting it on this sort of card. But yeah, I assume there will be some sort of Miro and Orange Cassidy match, and so I'm looking forward to it off the back of this. And I feel like we're on the path. I think it's early on in the path, but we're on the path to Miro and Kip Sabian breaking up, and Miro going on a complete and utter tear.
I'd be very much in the camp of supporting that happening on the next Dynamite and just moving on.
It very much won't happen on the next Dynamite. I don't think it will even happen by Double or Nothing.
So the major note that I had for that one was there was just one move that I wrote down as like, wow. I wrote down hell of a kick from Miro to Orange Cassidy. It was right after they did the whole thing with him pushing into Penelope Ford. Really liked that kick. There you go. That's my big takeaway with that.
He did some good stuff. He threw some good kicks to Chuck Taylor afterwards as well, and put him in the game over, and it was game over, as the move would suggest.
So to quote a movie from a long, long time ago, it's a quote that's always stuck in my head. The movie Heist. Danny DeVito says the line, "Everybody needs money. That's why they call it money." Which I always thought was a really stupid line, but it's stuck in my head for all these years. That transitioned us to the big money match. We got Big Money Matt Hardy and Hangman Adam Page. The winner of this gets the Q1 earnings for the loser. And if you would want to help out with Q1 on the Smark Out Moment channel, the best way to do that is to hit up the Patreon. We got a couple different tiers that are there, one of them being the Pick Your Poison tier, where you can request some sort of a special feature, some kind of a podcast or an article or something that you would like to see us do that maybe we might not necessarily get around to doing, and you want to make sure that we do, because once you sponsor that and we work out the details, then we go ahead and we do it. We got plenty of examples of those in the past where we've done some stuff like Superstar Scores, or we've done like a fantasy booking or a mock draft, or, lots of different options. So, if you got an idea, hit me up, let me know, donate to that tier, and we'll work something out. There's also the dark casts, and I mentioned before that if 10 people sign up for the $5 tier, I will move the dark casts down from the $10 tier to the $5 one, and you can get access to the Patreon exclusive episodes. So those are plenty of different things that we have for the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast, reviews of the pay-per-views, and we've done some just sort of random things here and there, and we're going to do some more of them. So take advantage of that, because I think, and I think you would all agree as well, that in the grand scheme of things, we're worth $1. We're worth $5 a month for all the content that we provide for everybody. And the more people that do that, the less that each person would need to contribute to get more things on this channel. Because think about it this way, 10 people sign up for the $5 tier. I'd like that so much more than one person signing up for the $50 tier. And the more that we get, the more funding, the more I can dedicate time to doing more stuff and less time doing freelance stuff. And then you can get more and more podcasts, better graphics, more live streams. Who knows? Maybe some video game stuff. Maybe some watch-alongs. Maybe, I don't know. There's lots of options. So donate to the $1 tier, donate to the $5 tier to get access to the dark casts if we get to 10 people. And, keep that in mind. But we know at the very least that Hangman Adam Page is in a good spot here as far as his monetary concerns, because he won this match against Big Money Matt Hardy with a little bit of help from some outside interference. We got Private Party coming in here trying to help out Matt Hardy, so Dark Order backs up Hangman Adam Page. I didn't love the beginning of it, but overall, thought it was fine. I liked the ending. I'm glad that it worked out the way that it worked out. It was just it's a match. Nothing great, nothing bad.
Yeah, it was just a straight up wrestling match. Probably the last time we would be saying that for the entire rest of the night. It was just two people that are very good professional wrestlers having a professional wrestling match. Matt Hardy was the heel, and he did heel stuff. He attacked the hand of Adam Page. Adam Page sold the hand throughout the rest of the match. Eventually was able to come back on Hardy. Private Party got involved. Did a few shenanigans. Hardy hit a twist of fate on the floor at first and nearly got Page counted out, and then he hit one in the ring, but Page kicked out again. Dark Order even the odds. Page wins with the buckshot lariat. He celebrates with the Dark Order at the end, but it isn't clear if it's official that he's joined or is leading the Dark Order now. He's just happy that they were there to help him.
They're just buds.
Yeah.
And
that's
I like
maybe
it better
what you
that
need
way.
right now. They all had a nice little group hug towards the end of it, so it feels like it's a lot closer if that's the direction they're going to go in. But yeah, this told the story that it needed to. Page definitely should have been the winner if you are grooming him to be either the future world champion or at least somebody that's going to be contending with Omega down the road.
I'm really hoping that they build him up and it ends up being Page beats Omega All Out. Really hoping that's the case.
I think it's the issue with the fact that there are so many options now. I mean, Moxley is obviously out of the equation for a while, at the very least, but
after what he went through.
Yeah.
It'll be like the 4th of July.
But I don't think that it's cut and dry that it's going to be Page as the final one to do it. They might have a longer term plan with him.
Maybe.
But I mean, I'll be totally down for him winning it All Out or a pay-per-view just off that, like Full Gear or something like that as well. But yeah, I think that at least you're putting him on the path by keeping him strong and giving him wins with people, because Matt Hardy doesn't need to win matches now. At this point in his career.
Past that point, yeah.
Yeah, he's not going to be pushed towards a world title or anything like that. He might get a TNT run eventually at some point, but he doesn't need to be winning a lot of matches against top guys for that to happen.
That took us into the Face of the Revolution ladder match. We had one empty slot that was going to be filled with a TBA, and that ended up being Ethan Page, who I am not too familiar with. I've heard the name a lot recently. I've seen some images here and there of the whole the Karate Man thing, and I've not watched that. I don't know if I've seen any other matches of his, just sort of if he was in like All In or something, and I'm just forgetting about it. But I'm glad that it's a name and somebody that people could be excited about. And overall, I like this match. I have some criticisms, some things. One of them being Cody Rhodes being taken out. And the way that they had set that up, he was off on the side in like the little tunnel that they've got going on. And that was really distracting. Was it distracting for you?
Yeah, it was for a little bit because I was in the mindset because of what happened on the previous Dynamite that he's been taken out and he's doing this selling the injury thing. And then he's going to come back and he's going to be joined by Sean Spears and FTR.
The Horseman, yeah.
And I thought that was going to be him winning it off the back of that. But maybe they did that thinking that people would do that, and it was just a deliberate tease of it. I mean, maybe it was also just due to the fact that Cody has got a really badly damaged shoulder in reality, and so they wanted to keep him out of the match for as much as possible.
Ultimately, I don't disagree with the idea of taking him out of the match and then doing the whole, like, he comes back in. It was the way that they had framed it. And like my eyes kept naturally going to that corner of the screen, and I'm like, oh, I'm not watching the match, but I'm curious what's happening with Cody. Eventually, they got it. I don't know if this is like coincidence or if somebody actually said like, hey, you're still in the shot, move. But he eventually moved further away, and then I realized, oh, you know what? I'm actually still paying attention to the match now, like I should be. This is good. Yeah. How'd you think about like Paige and all the other people that were involved in this? Any like particular moments that you remember a good spot or?
So I only really know Paige as a tag team wrestler as part of the North in TNA. I know he was doing stuff with TNA beforehand as well. So let's say I say TNA Impact Wrestling. I always get confused with that sort of thing. But so I have seen bits and pieces, but I know him primarily as a tag team guy. I don't know how he will stand out on his own. I saw the Karate Man stuff. I thought it was absolute dog shit. So I can't really get too much invested into that side of his character as well. Hopefully they don't expose that side of it. Or if they do a much better job of it than Impact did. Other than that, I thought the match was good. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There's always a part in, especially shows that I'm watching live in the evenings, where my brain just switches off.
Yeah.
Because it's really late at night. And
yeah, I mean, especially with you over in the UK.
Yeah. So this is where my brain did switch off during this match. Maybe because it was just a ladder match, and it's all like, it feels like all things say, just like, I'm really burned out on ladder matches because every company just seems to do a ladder match every couple of weeks or whatever. Just like, especially in WWE, and again, it's hard to do that. But if I'm watching all of WWE and I'm watching all AEW, it's not AEW's fault per se, but it's just a case of, well, every company just does ladder matches now. Just seems to be the go-to. But yeah, I mean, it was good. I think the big spot for me was the one that did take Cody out, which was the Canadian Destroyer through the ladder. I mean, it was very obvious that it didn't actually hurt. When they showed one of the replays of it, it was quite obvious that Cody was completely protected by it. Like his head didn't come anywhere near the ladder.
Yeah.
But it was still like a cool little spot. I think like I like the fact that Caster was always trying to sneak up the ladder. I really honestly can't remember anything that Ethan Page did in this match that was really of any note to me. And I'm sure he did, but that's on me. It's not on him. I just want to honestly say that right now. It's on me being too tired and not paying attention to it as much as I potentially should have done, rather than him actually not standing out. But I remember things from a lot of other people in the match, and yeah. I was very, very surprised with Scorpio Sky winning.
Page didn't do anything that really stood out to me. I can remember one thing that he did, which was the crucifix bomb. But that's it. Like, I can't remember anything else. So it's not like it's totally on you and oh man, you didn't realize what happened with Foley getting thrown off the Hell in a Cell, or like that kind of thing. He didn't do anything that crazy.
Yeah, I think the other guys just did more spectacular stuff or just more involved from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Like Archer in particular was just, again, a wrecking machine, but that's what he would do and that sort of thing. And I love this thing where basically there was a point where there was all four of them up on the ladder at one point. All four of them up on the ladder. I think everyone except Cody and Penta was up there. And then they all see the Archer's up there and they all start hitting his head into a ladder and stuff like that. And just like, okay, this is the end boss monster that we have to deal with, and then we can fight among each other for the scraps, that sort of thing.
So you said you're surprised about Scorpio Sky winning. Are you happy about it, or
I'm kind of ambivalent towards it. It's just they haven't really given me much reason to listen. They gave me a reason to care about Scorpio Sky in late 2019 and early 2020, and then they did nothing with him afterwards. He just was pretty much confined to Dark for the rest of the year, maybe appearing every now and again in that. Like, was it that the last match that I even really remember paying attention to him being involved in was that 8-man tag team match with him and Matt Cardona and against like the Dark Order when Dark Order was still heels. That's the last thing that I really remember him doing. So him winning this thing. Ever since then, the only other time that I really see him is when he's plugging his podcast.
The commercials on Dark and everything.
Yeah, so
he fell by the wayside for sure. He doesn't have the momentum that he used to.
So that's why I was shocked about it, just because I felt that everyone else, in fact, even Caster to an extent, had just more going for them. That would say, okay, they could lose a match against Darby Allin next week or anything like that. With Scorpio Sky, though, it's interesting, especially considering what we'll talk about next in the street fight. There's a good chance they actually give the title to Scorpio Sky.
I think that they might, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be by that forfeit idea. I think he's turning heel. Well, I mean, as much as you can turn heel in a company that says there are no heels and faces and all that.
Could you see him turning heel, maybe joining Team Taz?
Ooh. I like that.
Because Taz was talking about the other thing, saying, "Oh, this is an early Christmas present to Scorpio Sky and stuff like that." Because
my good friend Scorpio Sky. Yeah, I like that quite a bit. I'd be down for that.
It does mean that the feud between Darby Allin and Team Taz would go on.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe not, but I wouldn't be opposed to the idea of him. I like the idea of just Team Taz just being a faction that expands quite a bit. Like, I really want them to still get Layla Hirsch in because I think she makes the most sense as a woman performer in their team.
Yeah, I mean, I can't picture Maki Ito being a part of Team Taz.
No. But no,
that would be kind of great. I'd be up for seeing how they pull that off.
I'm just happy to see Maki Ito in any capacity. I hope they film like 1 million matches before she has to go back to Japan.
They ought to eventually have a blow off of we've had exploding barbed wire death matches, we've had bunkhouse stampede matches. We should have the Who's the Cutest in the World match, and she could lose that, I guess.
No, but she is the cutest in the world. Ito-chan. That's what you say.
I did like a lot that it was a literal brass ring. I've pitched that before, that I think that they should do that kind of a thing, and finally a company did it. I like the joke. I think it makes sense. And I really, really liked, and this is just one of those things people will be like, this is going to be one of your favorite things of the night. Really? This? But it's true. Legitimately, one of my absolute favorite things of this entire pay-per-view was Scorpio Sky trying to reach up to the top and get that brass ring, and the crowd chanting, "Reach for the sky." I'm like, that's the perfect chant.
Yeah, it's great.
Love that. That was absolutely perfect.
AEW crowd has like some good creative chants. I don't know whether they're being coached or anything for that.
Yeah. There's like an applause sign that has like, chant this now, that kind of thing.
I was just wondering that Sonic would have been a much different game if it was that difficult to get even a gold ring.
Imagine if Scorpio, when he grabs that, if he just turned all yellow, became Super Scorpio Sky. Well, it wouldn't be if he got the ring. He'd have to get the Chaos Emeralds. So, yeah. He would just get to the point where if somebody hit him, that ring would fly out, and he'd have to go get it again.
And that would be an interesting quirk for the Darby Allin match. Darby Allin just kicks him and the ring just flies out of his body. It's
like R-Truth with the 24/7 title. Like, he tries to win it back. It's like whoever gets the brass ring has to keep grabbing it immediately afterward.
What's my thought? I thought it was just like, obviously I like the brass ring name, but I thought it's either a giant Sonic coin or it's a giant Honey Nut Cheerio.
I wrote down, I wish I had a Sonic the Hedgehog, Lifesavers, or Cheerios joke to go along with this, because it's one of those. I like that, though.
We said Cheerio to Cody before he knocked him off the ladder.
There you go. Okay, good. I like that. What I don't like, though, is we got our mystery signing. Christian Cage. It's Christian.
The instant classic. I know, before you go off on it, of course. But so I'll let you talk about that subject. The one thing that I really appreciate about this, besides the fact that Christian's going to be wrestling for a company full time for a little while, and so I'm looking forward to that, it's they have his TNA theme.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they got it. Like, are they allowed to do that? It's like did they purchase his theme? Like, I'm pretty sure Tony Khan could have just said to whoever owned it, do you mind if just buy it? Or maybe Christian always owned that theme when he came into TNA and they just used it. But
that song is one of, you know how like with DDP they pretty much copied we got a blanket on the name.
It Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yeah, I'm like smells Nirvana. Wait, that's not right. They pretty much copied that, and we've had like Come As You Are, and we've had some other things here and there. That song is basically a copy of an Evanescence song. So I don't know if it's exactly 100% the TNA one, or if it's just their remake of that.
It sounded like exactly the same. So I mean, maybe it is a remake, and it just sounds very similar, but it really felt exactly the same to me.
Yeah, and I got so annoyed though as soon as it's like starts doing the countdown, and I start hearing it because I'm like, damn it. Again, I will say this is not a negative towards AEW. Not at all. I'm glad they could pick up anybody who they think that they can pick up and have like, get an asset out of this. And I don't blame them either for trying to get another established name and a veteran and all that. And there are some matches that could be really good. So that's all positives. But none of them compare to the negative in my mind of, God damn it, Edge is back and Christian's back, and we can't get Edge and Christian for years now. It's not going to happen. Like, I waited 10 years with this idea in my mind of, God, it would have been so much better if Edge and Christian would have had a retirement match against each other. And you can finally do it and finally have Edge and Christian have a tag title reign, or they fight each other at WrestleMania next year or this year even, or whatever it might have been. And he goes to the opposite company and signs a multi-year deal. And I'm like, shit. That is the negative here is, how in the hell does WWE let this happen? So it's a negative against WWE, not to AEW. And it's a little bit of a negative against AEW of, come on, don't be selfish. Which is stupid because it's like, don't be selfish. Give me the thing I want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will fully admit the hypocrisy when it comes to that. But that's where I'm thinking. I'm like, there's not a single match in AEW with Christian Cage that I think is going to be worth the idea of not having the Edge pairing.
I mean, I totally understand that side of it. But I'm not privy to the inner workings of how the contracts or what was discussed or anything, whether it was on the WWE side or AEW side or whatever. My only assumption is that WWE lowballed him.
Oh, guaranteed.
Yeah, assuming that he would sign because the other company wouldn't want him because he's quote unquote not a big deal. And he would want to do the matches with Edge and stuff like that. And so they can give him a low offer and he would just come in, do a couple of matches and go. Whereas AEW probably said, okay, we want to make you, may not make you like world champion like immediately or anything like that, but we want to position you prominently. We want to feature you every single week because we know that you're cleared to compete or anything along those lines. I'm going to give you more money to be here and stuff like that. And Christian said, yep, fine. And so I don't blame Christian. I don't blame AEW. I blame WWE for being very stingy about this whole thing.
I don't blame. Go ahead.
Oh, you say not seeing, like you say, the value in even just having like a couple of tag team matches, and then, like you say, the singles match between Edge and Christian. It's like, yeah, it's just. I'm not saying like it's going to be game changing for them, It's not going to make the money realistically, those matches, but it would have been fun for the fans to see, and the fans would have gotten behind it. And maybe occasionally that's something that WWE should think of doing.
Mm-hmm.
Actually putting on stuff that people want to see,
Right.
rather than
just doing the rematches of whatever the hell Vince wants on that particular day.
Yeah, exactly. So, but like I said, I can't hate it too much because I know that he'll be booked better in AEW than he would have been in WWE.
Yeah, I don't blame Christian at all for going there. I don't blame AEW for reaching out and trying to get him and getting him. I mean, we don't know exactly what the details are. We don't know if that's the type of thing where he got such a significant amount of money that you can make the argument that maybe they shouldn't have invested it in him, because there are a lot of people that are complaining. There's some people that really hate this because they're going, oh, that wasn't a big enough surprise. And there's some people that are like, oh, he's 47 and whatever, and that shouldn't be what AEW is focusing on. And I mean, I'm not harping on those things, but I will say that I get when people go, oh, you're going further down the TNA road, because it's like Sting and Christian. There's all the teases of Kurt Angle. It is kind of like, I see it. I might not agree with it, but I see it. To me, it's just the Edge thing that I'm harping on, because I'm just like, how the hell does WWE continue to do this kind of stuff? It really starts to feel like they are actively sabotaging the company.
Mm. No, yeah, I totally.
Sometimes it seems like that is like the only rational, not that that's rational, but like, I mean, you try to figure out how things work. And I don't know about anybody that's listening. I don't know about you. But I am the type of person who, when I was a kid, I would do things like, let me take my pen apart and see how this works. I'll take a calculator apart if it's broken and go, hey, how did that work? Oh, okay, so the battery was there. I'm not an engineer or anything like that. Obviously, I didn't go down that road. Instead, I'm talking into a microphone about this. But like, I like following logic, and I like trying to figure out why things are the way that they are, whether it's psychology or if it's just the technical side of things. And I look at the way that WWE does a lot of what they've been doing for the past 4 years, basically. And one of the only logical conclusions I can come to is somebody is actively saying, I want to do the wrong thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a fairly logical outcome. It's either that, or again, the other obvious logical thing is that Vince is just senile, and so he just does whatever he wants to do, and he doesn't actually know what happened the previous week, so he just does something on the fly.
And it really seems like, if I'm Christian and they lowball me, and I do this, go through this effort of getting cleared, and I do all this kind of stuff, and they go, well, we don't really give a shit, I would be like, for the second time? Like, this is happening again? Where I'm going to have to go to this other rival company to get some kind of recognition instead of just being treated like a former multi-time world champion, a guy who's won multiple mid-card titles, who was a part of one of the best tag teams ever, had his own network show with you. Like, it's Christian. It's not like Slam Master J,
Yeah, he's a huge deal. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, there's so much that you could have done with Christian if you kept him on. Again, the Edge stuff is happening. There's a lot of people that are harping on this idea that he never got that match for the Intercontinental Championship that he earned all those years ago and stuff like that. And he could have easily had an Intercontinental title feud or even a run with the title. There's so much they could have done with Christian. And AEW is going to reap the benefits of that, I assume. It's just a case of, I mean, I really don't know how to say it. It's just like, and people that say about the TNA thing, I can see them, but they don't look. But those people are just not looking on the surface, not seeing what else is happening. And TNA was building up bigger stars, like smaller stars, up and coming stars, in the same way that AEW is doing it. It's just that TNA's problem wasn't bringing in a load of old stars. It was, I mean, there was part of that in the fact that certain ones of the big stars they were bringing in were just like disruptive or in it for themselves. There only to make money, or like like drug addicts and like alcoholics and stuff like that. AEW seems to be a bit more choosy when it comes to that side of things. That's why you probably haven't seen Scott Steiner show up and probably never will. But it's just a case of, and it's just that AEW's booked better than Impact was for the most part.
And AEW gives me at least the vibe that I get the feeling that with certain people, they went to TNA because they had no other choice. Whereas AEW, I feel like some people are going there because that's their choice. Because AEW is fun. You got more freedom. It seems more passionate about things. Like, Paul White is probably not going to do 10 times better of a career in his time in AEW than his entire history of his career all combined. But I bet you he's going to have more positives in the next year in AEW than the past 2 years in WWE. And that might just be because he's enjoying himself more, you know?
I don't think you can blame people towards the end of their career if they just want to have some fun. Or they've put their body on the line. They've made a lot of money. And I don't think that Christian's going to come in and just rest on his laurels. He's here to prove a point.
Yeah. I mean, his slogan here, like, you can always look at that, too, as a good, like, gauge of where people are. Like, Big Show comes in, no more BS. And it's like, yeah, it's a Big Show pun, but it's also, like, I'm tired of that kind of crap. And Christian comes in, it's outwork everyone, I think it was the phrase. So if he's trying to say, I can still go, he's going to prove it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm very much looking forward to see what he does as part of the AEW. And also, I just want to point out that again, the people that criticize them for being like too similar to TNA, signing ex WWE guys or ex TNA guys. I was saying WWE signed a fair amount of ex TNA talent in the last few years. So
yeah, they got Rude, they got Samoa Joe, they got AJ Styles,
Lashley back, all this other stuff. Yeah, so.
Yeah, so it's I don't subscribe to the idea of like Christian came in, oh my god, they're TNA. But I can see when people go, well, there's Christian in there and there's Sting, and they come out of the babyface and heel tunnels, and it's the alternative, and then you start like going like and then you're like, yeah, okay, I see it. But I'm just like, damn it, we're not gonna get that Edge thing. Like, come on, WWE. Like,
well, just because I wanted TNA to be a good alternative. You wanted Impact Wrestling or TNA to be a good viable alternative because that makes things more interesting.
Yeah.
AEW seems to be more in that direction. We'll see how it goes, but if they do things like they did in the last couple of minutes of the main event, then we'll see how it goes. But
do you think that Kurt Angle's coming in?
I would like him to come in for one match,
so that way he can have like a true final match.
Yeah, I just again, this is just probably for me in certain other ways that people would be for certain other wrestlers. Kurt Angle, I think, is the greatest wrestler of all time. He's my favorite of all time. So it always just gives me a bit of feeling in the stomach to know that his final match was with Baron Corbin. It makes me feel better in the fact that it was at WrestleMania, but it should have been against Cena, and everyone knows that it should have been against Cena. But
well, with Cena not being there, who would you want his final match to be if he only has one match in AEW?
Gable. Cena. Oh, you talk about AEW.
Yeah. I mean, Gable could be a part of AEW soon too, for all we know.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would enjoy that something. Miro.
Really?
I think that he's the one that kind of fits that. Not so much the angle dynamic as much, but I think he's someone that could have an angle match as well as anybody. I mean, realistically, there's lots of great wrestlers on there, but I don't think that he was going to have that match. He'd have that match with Omega. I know he's had good matches with Cody in the past, like when Cody left WWE and Angle was still on the independent circuit. But yeah, I mean, realistically, I think that Miro could benefit from it as well by winning it and just showing more dominance off the back of it.
Yeah, so that's that other surprise. And then we got another surprise with Taz's microphone being messed up, and I was like, "Oh God, change it," which is terrible.
We didn't mention one of the big narratives throughout this entire show, which is Jim Ross's voice.
Literally, the pre-show starts, And they do the whole match and whatever. They cut to, okay, well, JR is going to be popping up. And immediately I'm like, he's already losing his voice.
I know. I mean, credit to him. It got better in between.
Yeah.
Like when he was saying things in like short bursts, he was fine. But then when they got him to like say like doing the intros to matches on the card and stuff like that, his voice would go towards the end of it. And so I think they realised what situation he was in and managed it as best they possibly could.
Yeah. So Taz's microphone was messed up a little bit at the beginning of it. Thankfully, they did fix that. But I've heard a lot of criticisms already, just looking at the way that Twitter's responded to this, that the street fight between Darby Allin and Sting against Team Taz, a lot of people didn't like it at all. And it seems like the main reason was shut off the commentary. I didn't find it as distracting. Maybe I kind of maybe shut my brain off about it. So I don't know if that's just, it didn't hit me the same kind of way. I actually, ultimately, I liked it. And I don't like these cinematic matches. So I'd have been much happier if they didn't have background music, because I hate that kind of thing. But I liked it. I like this segment.
Yeah, I mean, as an entire segment, I thought it was amazing, but it was brilliant. I loved. This is how a cinematic match should be presented, because it felt like a fight. It didn't feel like there was no swamp monster that came out or anything like that, or there was no. And maybe that's just because WWE leans too heavily on the comedy, and this was no comedy whatsoever. It was just people beating the shit out of each other, and I just loved watching it.
I laughed when Darby Allin went through the glass.
I mean, listen, there are certain bits that you can find funny, but it wasn't presented as a comedic way of doing it.
Yeah, I just like that they did the little swing and threw him in there. I laughed at that.
No, but I just love the fact that there was a ring, and that you got to see Sting doing stuff in the ring. He was mainly fighting with Ricky Starks for most of it.
Yeah,
and Ricky was selling great for him. You could tell that Ricky was having the time of his life in there, because he's getting to fight Sting. He's basically having, even though it was a tag team match, he's basically having a one-on-one match with Sting for the most part during this match. Like he may never get that opportunity ever again. And like early on, it was like Brian Cage was just doing how many things can I throw Darby Allin through?
Yeah.
Just like throws him through doors, and then he gets thrown through glass later on, and just like pushing him into all types of things. Like that awesome spot where he puts him in a suplex position and climbs up a flight of stairs.
Yeah, that was really good. That was impressive.
Yeah, this guy is a freak of nature, and they really should push him like that as well. Maybe they will off the back of these things, but yeah, that was so much fun. They had Darby Allin show a lot of resilience because he was just being pummeled throughout the entire thing. I think they did right by Sting. I think they may have gone over the top with him being almost like single-handedly being able to take out these people. My argument for that being that he is just, you can't sully his reputation too much, even though he is 61. Because then, as soon as you see him being too weak or being too beaten down, the aura goes away. So I think they're doing right to protect that aura as much as possible. And like he has the bat and he's beating people up with it. They do that crazy spot of Darby just diving through Cage and everyone else through basically just a hole in the floor. Just goes nowhere. It could just be a portal to hell for all I know.
That'll be the next gimmick match, portal to hell match.
Yeah, and then Sting ended up beating Ricky Starks with the Scorpion Death Drop, and just this match was crazy and insane. I think it's the best cinematic match I've seen since the Boneyard match.
I'd say it might even be better.
Oh, it's definitely like there. I think there are bits that I really like about the Boneyard match. Again, there are bits of it that lean maybe a bit too much on the comedy side of things, but to be fair, it's one of the most serious cinematic matches that I've seen as well, and this one as well. So that's what I want. I want my cinematic matches to feel like, cinematic fights rather than, it's cinematic, so that means we could do a load of goofy shit that we wouldn't be able to get away with in a quote unquote real match. I just want to see some people fight.
One of the things that I like a lot better about a match like this is that they have a ring and they have a referee. Because when they treat this like it's a match and you're fighting at a dentist's office and the pinfall's happening on top of the dentist's chair and whatever, that's just a vignette to me. You know? Or even worse, when you don't even have a referee and it ends up being like that swamp fight where it's just sort of, here's a bunch of shit happening and it's going to end with, oh, he fell into the water. Okay, that's the end of the pay-per-view. Like, come on. I'm not here to watch the B-movie YouTube project that they're working on with their rental camera and whatever. You know, I want to see a wrestling match. And if it's in cinematic style, I want to see a wrestling match in a cinematic style, not a goofy, this will be kind of fun thing after one after another. Let's run around the corporate headquarters and Doink the Clown's going to be behind this one shot and whatever. Not even real Doink. That's got to be my least favorite. That Money in the Bank one. I hated that so much.
Yeah, it's retroactively gotten more goofy over time. It's just that I like the fact that this had a ring, it had a referee, it had a purpose behind it. It was violent and it felt obviously over the top in places, but it was realistic in a way, or at least it felt like an action scene that you'd see in a movie. Like they did some excellent cinematography in this match as well. I know people would probably get annoyed at the commentary, and I can understand people taking that perspective. I was more put off by the music that was going on through it.
Mm-hmm. I don't like when they do the music.
I didn't think it was necessary. They could have just been making noises throughout the atmosphere of them being in that warehouse. I think the setting was really good though. Like they picked a really good place to do it. I don't know where that is. Because obviously I don't live there or anything like that. I hope the ring's still there. Just people just stumble upon it at one point. They find Brian Cage in the rubble somewhere.
That portal to hell. Somebody just climbs out.
Yeah, just find like a load of abandoned Sting masks in the
bat
in the corner
too.
somewhere. Oh yeah, broken bat. Yeah, it's just I can't say any greater positives on top of it than what I've already said. It's just a really, really fun match.
I like the part where Sting punched Ricky Starks and they made a bell sound with the whole he rung his bell. Didn't like Darby Allin's super long intro. I think Darby Allin's really overrated when it comes to a lot of that stuff. I just feel like this is my amateur college film thing, and it's like, well, you got to head up your ass about some of that, kind of thing. I think it can be something that's really fun, but I think more than often it's a miss for me rather than a hit. And when it goes on long like that, I'm like, can we get into the match? I get it. You're skateboarding. Move on.
I just don't think he's for you.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. I just feel like but there's clearly a group of people that he is for, and those people seem to be just totally into him. So
there's an audience for everything. Like, just because I got an opinion about something doesn't mean that it's right. Sometimes it is, but I mean, he appeals to a certain person, and there's also so far Darby Allin hasn't done it for me. Maybe there's going to be a switch at some point. Because I've had instances in the past where I've been like, I don't understand what this Daniel Bryan buzz is all about. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? He's actually amazing. And then there's other instances where it's been however many years, and I'm like, yeah, I still don't think that Bray Wyatt is as amazing as everybody else says. He's a reliable hand, but I don't think that he's the next Undertaker Hall of Famer 6 years ago already type of thing. So I'm hoping that Darby Allin's more of that. Okay, now I really connect with it, as opposed to being always that guy that says, I'm not feeling it as much. So I like the match a lot more than I thought that I was going to. Give them credit for that.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites throughout the entire thing.
And then we got the exploding barbed wire death match for the AEW World Championship. And I told Caroline about this ahead of time. She's like, you gonna watch you think you're gonna have fun with the pay-per-view later? And I was like, There's a couple of matches I'm not really all that into. A couple that I really am into, and the main event's an exploding barbed wire death match. So whatever, and her eyes got really big. And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, exploding barbed wire death match." And she's like, "I'm glad I'm not there watching that with you. I think I'd be a little bit too like nervous and whatever." And I'm like, "It's gonna be the way." I think the way that I phrased it to her was, "It's either gonna go extremely well, extremely poorly, or oh my god, extremely poorly." And I think we got a mixture of all three. I think we got some pretty good stuff here. Like this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then we ended up getting one thing that was like, oh god.
No,
you know.
No, I mean, you just talk about things where just everything goes not perfect, but it goes really well for a good solid half an hour. I'm just like, this stuff is really fun. It's all over the place. It's like, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but it's like, there's violence and there's explosions and there's barbed wire over the place. They're hitting each other with everything and hitting big moves and all this other stuff. And just to see it just all evaporate in 10 seconds is just like, I don't know if there's very, very few situations where that can ever be achieved. Like, it's just, I'm not saying it was a 5-star match or anything, but to have like a really, really good main event that had a lot of story and a lot of action in it, and then just like by the end of it, you don't remember any of it. Like, it all just fades into the background because of one thing they do at the end of it. It's just it boggles the mind about how you know how bad that thing has to be for it to just completely overstate everything you saw in that match. It's just like, this is so good for about 30 minutes and then it just all goes away. That's all I can say really about this entire thing.
If you were the type of person who like clicks out of your stream when the bell rings and you're like, oh, okay, so Kenny Omega retained, I'm just gonna go to bed, then you miss that part and you're like, this is great. And if you watch through at the end
No, I cannot emphasize this enough that watch this thing. Like, if you haven't watched Revolution yet and you just listen to our feedback before you decide whether or not you're going to order the replay or watch it later on in some device or whatever, like, stop it as soon as Eddie Kingston covers his body.
Yeah.
Just end it there. Assume the entire building blew up, and then you're happy.
Yeah, replace it in your mind with something like, oh god, what's that song that plays V for Vendetta? The da 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 and all the explosions and stuff. Like, just go with that. Go with something like the end of the movie Jackass, or a movie from the 1990s, some like Arnold Schwarzenegger flick, like a Commando type, where one guy with a grenade can make a bigger explosion than this. Because all throughout, like, I assumed that the explosions were going to be weak, and they were, but they were better than I expected. Because they had the whole, for anybody who doesn't know, the setup for this whole thing, you got barbed wire wrapped around the ropes, and if you touch the barbed wire, supposedly, obviously it's rigged and it's not real, the explosions go off, and they're mostly just like little firecracker kind of things. But I thought, you know what? Actually, I'm digging it.
Yeah, I thought some of the camera angles were a little bit off, which made them look a little bit worse than they could have been. But I think for the most part, it's what I kind of expected it to be, based on stuff that I've seen in the past. One thing that I was a bit annoyed about, not say annoyed, but like, thing that I think could have been done better is that they weren't clinging to the ropes once they'd been thrown into them. So it's like the idea of like they essentially bounced off barbed wire and went backwards, rather than like getting stuck onto the barbed wire and getting caught up in it for a little while. But they did when obviously they were using like the barbed wire bats and stuff like that. They were getting stuck to it and they went through the barbed wire boards, and you see their like clothes and bits sticking to their hair and their backs and stuff like that. And that was gnarly, but but there's a part of me that's always like been fascinated with that style of wrestling. I mean, some of my favorite matches of all time have been really big street fights or hardcore matches, so I can't be too down on it in that regards. I mean, one of my favorite matches of all time is that Randy Orton Mick Foley hardcore match from Backlash 2004, which is just like essentially, I don't know how Randy Orton is in any position to still wrestle after that match. Like, it's that violent. But so I was into it for the most part. I loved the dive off the dive, as it were, the paradigm shift off the apron through the things, where essentially Omega lands really head first, and then Moxley just laying there in loads of barbed wire on his back and stuff. It's just, you don't know who's actually suffering the worst on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, my favourite spot of the entire match, undoubtedly, is Omega hits the one-winged angel. And he gets two, then Moxley puts his foot on the ropes. It explodes in his face. It explodes in Omega's face. And so, technically, he didn't kick out of the one-winged angel. He just got his foot on the rope, and he used an explosion to break up the pin.
Yeah, I like that bit. That was cool.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, that was my favorite spot of the entire thing. But there was there was a lot of violence. You probably weren't so happy about the kendo stick usage and stuff like that. But it's just, but
I mean, my criticism with kendo sticks is I see them a million times, and I understand that they're safer, and that's why they use them. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense for it to ever be around the ring. But in this, like a match like this, I'm like, okay, well, these guys are having an exploding barbed wire death match. They brought a kendo stick. I'm cool with it. I just don't like it when it's like in the middle of Bailey against Peyton Royce. Bailey goes under the ring and gets a kendo stick, and it's like, why is that under the ring? Yeah. You know, like that doesn't make any sense. You know?
Yeah. And to be fair, they're not as safe as if what happened in this match, which was Kenny Omega just hitting Moxley right in the back of the head with the fucking kendo stick. Happens. Like the safeness of it kind of evaporates with that one.
Yeah, you're still getting blasted in the head with bamboo.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing that sullied it towards the end was having Anderson and Gallows interfere. I mean, it made sense in the context of the story, but it feels like Moxley doesn't have any friends. The fact that nobody came out to back him up in this.
Well, I think Kingston did. He just came late.
It was a bit late in the whole thing. Just so they beat him down afterwards. He did the cool one-winged angel through the chair, which is a nice spot, and got the victory, as you'd expect. We all knew Omega was going to win.
Yeah. I thought that the finish would come with that exploding barbed wire bat.
Oh, that was cool.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that was a good spot. Other than that, there was that. So then they start beating him up around the ring. They tie him up with handcuffs, and they beat around. Then the countdown starts going for a minute, and so they start clearing the ring. They get the referee out. They get out of the way. Omega's celebrating. Kingston barges his way through. As Kingston goes through, I am literally got the hugest smile on my face, because this is such good character development.
Mm-hmm.
They went to war with each other for several months over it, but at the end of the day, there's still a love and affection there between them that's deep seated. And so Kingston was just there to cover him over, to cover him over. And then I thought, oh my god, if they end this just with some sort of thing which intimates a really big explosion or anything like that, and Kingston's just taking the bullet for Moxley, then this is you said, the show was up and down throughout things, but it's just it's a perfect ending. And then it was just the complete opposite.
Yeah, I was expecting it could go down one of two ways. Kingston goes in there and he's not able to get them in time, and everything explodes, and it's oh wow, he even took a bullet for him. Or that he could have gotten just at the range where it's all right, either I can leave or Moxley can leave. I'm going to kick him to roll out from there.
Mm.
And then Kingston's the only one who gets in the ring. But what happens is Kingston's well, I'm out of time. I'm going to jump over on top of him and shield him from whatever, which really doesn't make any sense because the ring is the ring, so you should be able to feel it with the ring anyway. And then 6 sparklers go off. It's just
yeah,
and everybody goes, ah. The whole crowd's bullshit, kind of.
Yeah, you can hear the crowd audibly boo the final thing. It's just so there's so much they should have done here. And again, I don't want to be like I'm not a master in like ring pyrotechnics or anything like
Right.
that, but fucking hell, the ring could have collapsed at the very least. Like
They
I've
could
seen
have even
WWE
had just
collapse 3 rings before. Like they could do that.
they could have just had like normal pyro go
Yeah,
off
just
like
no.
ringside. Like
It, they could have like had the camera like fade in and out a little bit, like at least so like the visual experience for the viewer was a bit more impactful. Had the thing shaking. Like you say, normal pyro. They could have had like dust escaping from the bottom of the ring or something like that through some sort of like fan or something.
yeah.
Just to, just to make it feel like there's a big like even if you had like that thing goes like just have those explosions go off and then just it gets covered in either smoke or dirt or dust because of the thing that you have firing from under the ring, then it makes it feel like it was bigger than it actually was because it's like they're covered in debris or whatever.
Yeah, smoke machine at the bottom of there, have some kind of like I mean, you got to be safe, of course. You got to
Yeah.
factor that
Well,
into everything else, but like there's got to be ways to rig that I mean, people do it in movies, you know?
well, you,
Like
well, you know what they could have done, and saw this on Twitter as well. They could have just had it get down to 1 second. Kingston covers Moxley. It hits 0. The screen completely turns to black, and you hear a giant explosion.
even then.
And then you just like left with what the hell happened, like that sort of thing. And they could have just put a little logo in the corner, and then it's the end of the show, and you're left like, fuck, what happened? And you're just like, and that could have like saved them tons of budget as well because they wouldn't even have to pay for the fucking sparklers that they decided to put into this thing. Just it's just so. But what they should have done, and again, I know the situation they're in. Look, they've been told that this is the story to go with, so I can't blame them too much. But once that thing happens, you have to call an immediate audible. And the audible is that Kingston looks around, and the idea was that Omega was just bluffing.
Or that like somebody had tampered with it, somebody didn't set it up the right way.
Yeah.
And you just be like, well, it's a good thing that had like a misfire because there were 400 times the amount of pyro that would have gone off, but there was a glitch, and you know the guy that rigged it up was a shitty guy. We're never gonna get him again, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I've seen like the things from the poster conference that I've just been checking out on Twitter that Tony Khan says that Omega's bomb was a dud, and he drew the plans for it on crayon with crayons and stuff like that, so it didn't come together. But that's the idea. You either say it was a dud bomb that Kenny Omega fucked up, or that Kenny Omega was bluffing the entire time, and he was never going to risk potentially himself blowing up like that. He just wanted to like tease people with that side of things. Makes him seem like even more of a dick. And you can play out with the idea that Kingston was still so brave because he didn't know that was the case, and he still covered up Moxley, he still threw his own body on the line to protect him. You can build up from that by saying like Moxley's still out for it because he just took a hell of a beating in that entire match. And then you can have a match on Dynamite in a couple of weeks' time between Kingston and Omega for the title. Get that out of the way. Yeah, it's just the way they did it about how like the explosion was complete shit, and then Kingston had to just lay there pretending he was dead.
Yeah,
that was the thing that killed it, really.
Yeah, because if he would have rolled away and just been like, huh, then at least it gives you the intrigue. But they had to have done a test run of this. They had to have seen how that was going to look.
I mean, you'd like to think so, but based on what happened, I guess they didn't. Like maybe they felt like they couldn't do it for the final big explosion. They just said, "Oh, trust me, it's going to be a huge explosion," that type of thing. Like they test out all the explosions when you hit the ropes and stuff like that because I assume they had multiple versions of those. And they thought, well, we've only got one thing for the big explosion at the end of it, so we've got to save it. And they completely fucked up. Like, if they thought that was, like, if that was just a genuine plan, I almost hope that something fucked up.
Right.
And that, like, there was meant to be a bigger explosion or there meant to be some other effect that was supposed to happen, it just didn't rig up properly. And if they thought that this was going to be enough, then that is just a really, really dumb mistake. And I like to defend AEW. I don't say defend it. I don't think I'm as critical as some other people are. But when they do shit like this, it's just so amateur, and that would be for any promotion. I would say like in a local indie, if they had effects like that, I'd say it was shit. So if AEW do it, then it's shit. it's really bad.
They've got the money that they could have figured out something better than that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just such a damp squib on what I thought overall was a really good show, and I thought it was a really, really, really good main event, and just such a letdown at the end of it. It doesn't. I'm not angry about it. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, sometimes that's even worse.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying that as meant to be a defense of them. It's just like I'm not gonna say like it's like, oh, I'm done watching AEW or anything like that, stuff like that. But it's just a case of they did something shit in the main event, and at the end of the day, we're actually gonna look back on this and laugh rather than like be like, oh, that was so terrible, like this company sucks and stuff like that. We're just gonna go like, oh, that was really fucking funny actually, looking back on it.
Now, if going forward they try to act like, oh, how amazing was that, then it's gonna get to where you're like, dude, come on.
I think based on Khan's comments and stuff like that, they're already going to be pushing themselves towards the narrative of it being a dud bomb.
Yeah, they have to. That's the only way that they can respond to this. If they try to do what WWE would do, which is to have like Tom Phillips be like, oh God, you see that thing that happened? Oh, this was just the worst. Let me do the Owen Hart voice, that kind of thing.
It was the greatest bomb ever.
Yeah. Then again, WWE would be like, that is the best thing in the world, and also we're not going to pay for any of those things, whatever.
Yeah, we've already got people like Miro commenting on Twitter saying, "LMAO, Kenny Omega is such a bad engineer."
So at the end of the day, Kenny Omega retains.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of the very, very, very last part of that was a very fun segment, and
very good match. I enjoyed a lot of it.
I feel like this pay-per-view had a total reverse bell curve. It started out good, dipped down, got better at the end. And then, of course, there's this rapid thing at the very, very end, but that doesn't really count.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think the dip was too significant, but there was a dip in the middle. But yeah, I think the opening two matches definitely delivered. Well, I thought the opening three matches delivered in terms of like the main card. I think all the surprises were good. They weren't like over the top, like, oh my God, game changing announcements. But yeah, having Maki Ito, Ethan Page, and Christian show up, that was good. And yeah, the main event and the cinematic match and the ladder match that preceded it were all just some fun matches. So I can't complain. I thought thumbs up show.
Thumbs up show overall for me. Not 2 thumbs up from some of the things that went down, but at the very least, I could say it's the best AEW pay-per-view this year. I got a feeling that, like, for instance, Fastlane's not going to be better than this.
No. No, I still think, at the moment, if you were to, like, overall show of the year and stuff like that, for me, and this is probably mainly due to the fact that I didn't really catch much of Wrestle Kingdom and stuff like that, and I probably think differently if I watched those shows more closely, but I'd say it's between this and Royal Rumble at the moment.
I'd go Royal Rumble being better.
Yeah, it probably was, but I'm still there's bits of this that I liked more than certain parts of the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble would help with the fact that it had, Royal Rumble.
So yeah, tell us your thoughts on what you liked, what you didn't like, whether you agree or you disagree with us, and where you'd like to see things going forward. We know at the very least we're going to get Scorpio Sky in a TNT title match. We know we're going to get the tag titles somewhere along the lines are going to be on the line between the Young Bucks against Death Triangle. So maybe it's going to happen on Dynamite. Maybe they'll wait a couple weeks. Maybe they'll have another special coming up soon, kind of like Beach Break or Fighter Fest or something. And anything that's happening in that regard, we'll break down when it comes down to it. We'll either do that on the hot tags or we'll do that as some kind of a special thing if they end up making an actual pay-per-view. But it seems like the next pay-per-view is going to be Double or Nothing. That's the last, the one that they've actually advertised. And that's May 30th. So that's happening in Daly's Place. It's on the schedule already. I got that written down. It's like, all right, that week we're doing the pay-per-view predictions and so on and so forth. So if you only follow this for the AEW stuff, at the very least, that's when you'll be hearing us from that. But hopefully we'll talk more AEW in the meantime. And any other stuff on this pay-per-view itself before we get into the rest of the plugs that you want to talk about?
I mean, I'm slightly annoyed that the next the Double or Nothing pay-per-view is also taking place on a Sunday. Pisses me off that Like, just because I wish all pay-per-views took place on Saturday, it just makes it so much more convenient for me. But I know that's a very me thing, so can't complain too much with that regard. But I'm just overall, I thought the fun stuff on the show was really fun, and the ending, although it was completely a damp squib, will end up going back and just be. It needs to be like the featured thing on Botchamania for basically a couple of years at this point. If it's not, I'll be disappointed in the Botchamania people.
I'm curious what Matthew is going to do with that. He's going to have so many outros this next week. Mentioned before about the Patreon. If you enjoyed this, donate to the Patreon. Show us some love. Help us grow. $1 a month goes a long way. Thank you to Dane for the super chat. Thank you to everybody in the chat that's listening here. Fan Sports 5, Marco, and Guest 5, and everybody else. I'm losing track of some of the different people that popped in here and there. That's awesome. We are going to be trying to do these live post shows going forward. I'm liking how that is feeling. So when it gets to, I'm assuming the next one is Fastlane, and then after that, there's the takeovers. If they do the takeover thing where it's both Wednesday and Thursday, we might not do it for the Wednesday one just because there's Dynamite and everything too. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens there, and you'll be aware of it closer to that when we start figuring that kind of stuff out. Next week we have a blank week, so if you have any suggestions of what you'd like to see us do for the main event, then let us know. We'll try to factor that in as well. Go ahead and vote on the Smark Madness tournament. Right now we have the second round of the qualifying round, where you can determine the 32 that get into the bracket and the seeding for that. So vote on what you think the best pay-per-view names of all time in WWE history is, and we will continue on with that each and every week. We've got, of course, we're on the road to WrestleMania, so lots of different things are happening. Title changes are messing things up, and I'm writing tons of articles and everything, so check out what I've got on eWrestling News and Bleacher Report. Check out the regular hot tags each week. Check out the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast, which is coming to an end.
Yeah, it has pretty much exactly done that. So our most recent edition that went live on Saturday, it's obviously on the Smark Moment channel, whether you watch it on YouTube or listen through one of the podcast feeds, was the final chronological episode where we just did the final episode of the series, the March 6th edition of SmackDown, which involves the main event of Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman inside a steel cage, and lots of other fun stuff that we discussed there as well. We will be doing a little bit more at the very least in terms of maybe a review episode in the next week or maybe two. That I haven't really decided just yet because I haven't really thought about what sort of format that's going to take place yet, but we will discuss that one. And of course, we will do a review of WrestleMania 19, because if you have an excuse to do a review of WrestleMania 19, you do a review of WrestleMania 19. So yeah, we'll find out some form or fashion we're going to do that as well. Other than that, check out the articles on smartcatmoment.com and follow me on Twitter at WickMeister14. And check out all Rob stuff over on Fightful Wrestling and WrestleZone and all the places you can find him as well at Dude Felice.
And you can follow me at Tony Mango. You can check out the other things that are happening under a mango tree with the Fanboys Anonymous content over on Fanboys Anonymous. So if you like the red brand here, check out the blue brand. Check out the movie stuff and TV shows and video games, comics and whatever. At some point, we're going to do a WandaVision breakdown. And we've got that Review to Kill series and maybe some other movie reviews coming up soon too. So stay tuned for that. And stay safe. And we will see you next time, everybody. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.